Have you ever stopped to think if you are really taking care of your mental health? Often, we believe everything is fine, but ignore subtle signs that might indicate otherwise. Constant fatigue, irritability, and that feeling of emptiness can be more than just simple moments of stress. Evaluating your mental health is essential to living a more balanced and happy life. The good news is that understanding your mind doesn't have to be complicated. There are practical and quick ways to start re-evaluating your mental health today and make simple adjustments that bring results. Want to find out how? Then keep reading and get ready to transform the way you view your own mind. When it comes to mental health, many associate the topic with complex and distant issues, but in reality, we're dealing with something deeply connected to our everyday lives. The mind is the center of everything, and understanding how it works can be the key to a more balanced life. Imagine the mind as an operating system that, when properly adjusted, allows everything else to flow. If we don't pay attention to it, simple problems can turn into huge obstacles. And this is exactly where our journey begins, learning to observe the signs of what's happening inside us. A crucial point that many people overlook is the role of the subconscious in this equation. How many times have you done something without exactly understanding why? That's the subconscious at work. Most of our automatic responses, such as reactions to stressful situations, come from parts of the mind that are out of our conscious radar. So, before focusing on sophisticated techniques, the first step is to develop an awareness of these internal dynamics. It's like lifting the hood of a car and discovering that the engine needs adjustments. Without this basic understanding, any other attempt at improvement will be in vain. It's curious how these dynamics manifest in unexpected ways. You know that moment when you explode with anger over something that seems small, or that inexplicable anxiety that comes out of nowhere? These are examples of when the subconscious mind takes control, often due to traumas or old patterns we don't even remember. The good news is that by observing these patterns, we can begin to deactivate them. It's not an immediate process, but just recognizing them puts us a step ahead in the right direction. As we dive deeper into this understanding, transformation becomes inevitable. Small practices like meditation can help bring clarity about what's happening internally. When meditating, it's as if you're adjusting the focus of a camera that was out of focus. Suddenly, everything seems clearer. It's no wonder that so many experts recommend this practice for those who want to better understand their own mind. After all, the mind needs to be nurtured with calm and attention, just like the body needs physical care. And here's the magic. By opening this space of understanding, you'll be ready for the next steps that go beyond this basic introduction. Because understanding the mind is just the beginning of a much deeper journey. We will explore the pillars of this internal structure that make up who we are and why we act the way we do. After all, what comes next is essential to putting together the whole puzzle of mental health. When it comes to the mind, there are two words that define the foundation of everything: structure and function. It might seem complicated, but think of the mind as a building. The structure is like the foundation of this building, determining how everything will be supported. The function is what happens inside this structure, like the daily activities of those who inhabit the space. To understand yourself and how your mental health develops, it's essential to understand these two pillars. After all, if the structure is unstable, whatever happens inside, no matter how good it is, will always be affected. Now, the structure of the mind isn't something fixed like a concrete wall. It's formed throughout life from experiences, beliefs, and values we acquire from childhood. The way we face challenges, how we react to success or failure, all of this is related to how our mind was structured. For example, someone who grew up in an environment of constant criticism might develop a mental structure based on insecurity, which directly affects their self-esteem. And this undoubtedly interferes with how that person functions in the world. On the other hand, the function of the mind is related to the choices we make every day. These are the conscious and unconscious decisions that shape our behaviors. This is where the famous defense mechanisms come in, acting as guardians protecting our emotional structure. But often, these mechanisms end up sabotaging us, keeping us stuck in old patterns. It's like having a security lock that's always triggered, preventing us from moving forward. When we become aware of this, we can start making changes that really matter. A clear example of this is when someone deals with a past trauma. The structure of that person was shaped by that negative experience, and their defense mechanisms kick in to prevent the pain from repeating. But instead of protecting, they end up limiting. The person shuts down, avoids new experiences, all in the name of an illusory safety. This is where the crucial role of self-understanding comes in. By realizing how your structure and function are intertwined, you begin to find ways to adjust these mechanisms and create new ways of responding to the world. And this is the key to true transformation. When you understand the structure and function of your own mind, it opens up space to reconfigure your emotional and behavioral responses. This leads to a new way of living, more aligned with your desires and less influenced by old patterns. And now that you have this foundation, we're ready to explore practical tools that can help you in this process. After all, understanding the mind is just the beginning, but knowing how to work with it is the next big step. Being aware of the structure and function of the mind is a big step, but to truly improve mental health, we need practical tools. Tools that help us deal with day-to-day challenges and break old patterns. It's like being in a workshop, ready to adjust a complex machine. In this case, our mind. And one of the most powerful tools we have at our disposal is cognitive behavioral therapy, known as CBT. This approach teaches us to identify negative thoughts and replace them with healthier alternatives, like swapping a faulty part for a more efficient one. CBT may seem like a distant concept, but in practice, it's quite simple. Let's imagine someone has a recurring thought that they'll never achieve their dreams. This thought often leads to discouragement, procrastination, and even isolation. CBT teaches this person to recognize this automatic thought, question it, and replace it with something more positive and realistic, like, "I'm doing the best I can, and with focus, I can improve little by little." This shift in perspective may seem small, but it has a huge impact on how the person acts and feels. Another essential tool is the knowledge of one's emotional triggers. We all have those moments when, without quite understanding why, we are swept away by a wave of anger, sadness, or anxiety. This happens because something in the environment or in our interactions activates these unconscious triggers. Imagine someone who gets nervous every time they hear criticism, no matter how mild. This could be linked to an old pattern, like excessive criticism in childhood. By identifying the trigger, this person can start deactivating their automatic reaction and respond more consciously. A very useful practice for dealing with emotional triggers is mindfulness meditation. Through it, a person learns to observe their thoughts and emotions without being carried away by them. It's like watching a movie without getting emotionally involved in the plot. You see what's happening, but you don't have to react to every scene. Over time, this practice helps build a more balanced mind, less reactive, and more centered. This doesn't mean eliminating emotions, but learning to deal with them in a healthier and more productive way. With these tools in hand, CBT, identification of triggers, and mindfulness, you're already better prepared to improve your mental health. But the tools alone are not enough. They need to be used consistently and intentionally, just like any skill you want to master. And this is where the importance of fundamental qualities like gratitude and humility comes in, which, when cultivated, further amplify the power of these tools. But that's a conversation we'll have next, because these qualities are essential to shaping a truly healthy mind. Mental health goes far beyond tools and techniques. It also involves building an internal state that fosters personal growth, and two qualities are indispensable for this: empowerment and humility. At first glance, these two words may seem opposite, but in fact, they go hand in hand. Empowerment gives us the strength to act, to take control of our lives, while humility reminds us that there is still much to learn, and that sometimes we need to step back and reassess our choices. It's the balance between confidence and openness that shapes a healthy mind. Empowerment begins with the understanding that although not everything is under our control, our responses are. It's like navigating a boat. You can't control the wind, but you can adjust the sails. When someone realizes that they have the power to choose how they react to events and circumstances, a window for significant change opens up. For example, someone who feels stuck in an unsatisfying job can start looking for small ways to transform their routine while planning a bigger change in the long term. The feeling of being in control of your actions is liberating. Humility comes into play to remind us that we don't know everything, and that sometimes we need help. How many times have we encountered situations where we thought we had all the answers, but in reality, we were ignoring valuable advice? Humility teaches us to listen, to learn from others, and to recognize our own limits. It's that old saying, the more you know, the more you realize how much there is still to learn. And when someone adopts this mindset, new doors open because learning becomes constant. Gratitude is another aspect strongly related to humility. Being grateful is not just an exercise in acknowledging what we already have, but also in valuing the opportunities for growth that arise, even in difficulties. A grateful mind is an open mind, ready to learn and evolve. Gratitude can be practiced in simple ways, like writing down 3 things you are grateful for every day. This small gesture has the power to transform your worldview, making you more receptive to the changes and challenges of life. And so, empowerment and humility work together to strengthen the mind. When someone feels empowered to act but is also willing to listen and learn, they create a solid foundation for a fuller and more balanced life. But of course, these qualities need to be cultivated over time, and they intertwine with daily mental health practices. And speaking of practices, let's now explore practical methods for evaluating and adjusting our mental health, something that can be done by anyone willing to dive a little deeper into this journey. Taking care of mental health is not just about understanding concepts, but also about putting into practice methods that really make a difference in everyday life. And one of the most effective ways to start is through introspection. The process of looking inward and questioning your own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors is the foundation of any significant change. But of course, introspection must be done honestly and without judgment. It's as if you're analyzing a map of your mind. And to navigate better, you need to understand the terrain before charting the route. A very useful tool for this is keeping an emotional journal. By writing down your thoughts and feelings daily, you start to identify patterns that previously went unnoticed. Imagine that when reviewing your notes, you notice that every time you face criticism, your response is anger or defensiveness. This kind of insight is only possible when you take the time to reflect on your experiences. And the best part, by identifying these patterns, you can adjust them, turning automatic reactions into conscious responses. Another crucial point is understanding your own character structure. Each of us has predispositions that influence how we react to the world around us. Some people are naturally more anxious, while others are more confident. This doesn't mean we are stuck with these characteristics, but rather that we can adjust them as needed. If you know that you tend to be impulsive in stressful moments, for example, you can develop techniques to pause and reflect before acting. This kind of adjustment is what makes self-knowledge so powerful. But it's not just about correcting what seems wrong. Evaluating your mental health also involves recognizing your strengths and knowing how to use them wisely. A person who knows they are creative, for example, can use that skill to solve problems in innovative ways, while someone with a strong capacity for empathy can strengthen their personal and professional relationships. The important thing is to understand that our characteristics, whether challenging or positive, can be adjusted and directed toward growth. And that's how the practice of caring for mental health becomes a constant journey of adjustments and improvements. It's not about reaching a perfect state, but rather about always being attentive to what needs to be adjusted and what can be cultivated. Throughout this journey, it is essential to apply practical methods like emotional journaling, self-evaluation, and behavior adaptation. With these tools in hand, you'll always be ready to face the challenges that arise. And of course, this is just the beginning. There are always new layers to be discovered and explored. Now that you have the tools to understand your mental health, what will you do with them? Knowledge alone doesn't change anything. Action does. Small daily steps can transform your mind and your life. Are you ready to start? Apply what you learned today and watch the changes happen. And if you want to keep learning and growing, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything.